In our high-tech world of emails and text messages, we have grown accustomed to taking ease of communication for granted and can't even begin to imagine a world where someone in America or Australia is farther than a phone call away. Of course, it wasn't always so. With me in the studio is Judith Nixon, the manager of the Farthington Gallery in Russell Square, where an exhibition of antique postal items is taking place this week. Judith, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Could you give us a brief summary of the evolution of postal services through the ages? I gather it's rather a fascinating story.
Well, I certainly think it is. But then I have always found the various ways in which civilizations throughout the ages have dealt with the problems of long-distance communication fascinating, not least for the ingenuity that characterizes many of the cases, especially when you consider the means they had at their disposal in those times. Of course, the most obvious way of sending a message, and one of the first, was by human messenger. One of the most famous examples of which was Philippides, the runner who, according to legend, in 490 BC ran the 42.5 kilometers from Marathon to Athens to enlist help from the Spartans against the Persians. Since good communications were essential for governing the extensive empires of the ancient world, it is not surprising that references to runners or messengers on horseback are plentiful throughout history. Records dating as far back as 4,000 years refer to messenger systems in ancient Egypt and relay stations situated on major roads in the first millennium in China. However, as is often the case with anything useful, credit has to be given to the Romans for establishing the most highly developed postal system of the ancient world. Obviously, the sheer size and complexity of the Roman Empire necessitated the need for a reliable and speedy method of communication with provincial governors in far-flung places. The relay system established by the Romans allowed their messengers to travel at a speed that could not be matched in Europe until the 19th century. The next major development occurred towards the end of the Middle Ages, when international commerce began to flourish, and with it the growth of business correspondence. In the 13th century, messenger systems were again adopted to allow corporations to maintain contact with their customers. In the late 15th century, the trend toward improved postal services was given a further boost by the invention of the printing press in 1450. One result of that was the increased profitability of letter carrying, which, in turn, led to a growth in private enterprise, the most famous and extensive by far being that of the Thurn and Taxis family, who in the 16th century created an extensive network of postal routes covering most of Europe. These systems were successful to the extent that remnants of the system could still be seen in Germany as late as 1867.
Well, all of these developments are without doubt fascinating, Judith, but you promised to tell us something about the more off-the-wall forms of communication.
Yes, I did, didn't I? Well, one which I'm sure most of your listeners will have heard of is the Pony Express, which operated in the United States for a brief period from April 1860 to October 1861. This mail delivery service, like the Romans, also relied upon a relay system to ensure speed of delivery. However, partly due to the hazardous nature of the territory the riders had to cover, but primarily to the ill-timed advent of the telegraph, this daring but ultimately financially disastrous enterprise was short-lived, although it did provide the backdrop for one of the most colourful characters of the Wild West in the form of William Cody, better known as Buffalo Bill. Perhaps more inspiring than plain runners or men on horseback, but just as old, is the notion of the carrier pigeon. The earliest reference to the domestication of pigeons was found, surprise, surprise, in Egyptian records dating back to 3000 BC. One of the more romantic notions, although not proven, is the belief that the ancient Egyptians announced the arrival of important visitors by releasing pigeons from incoming ships. In more recent times, carrier pigeons were more practically used during the 2 world wars as war correspondents, carrying messages and microfilm to and from battle headquarters.
Well, I can certainly understand why you say that the evolution of the postal system has been a long and arduous journey. Tell us a little about the actual exhibits visitors can see when they visit the Farthington this week.
Well, the exhibition is basically divided into 4 distinct sections.